Friends, hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome to Love Wrestling and welcome to the latest edition of The Mind Behind. Of course, right here on Love Wrestling, you got to get the branding in, whether you're on Twitch, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube. Thanks once again for joining me as I chat with one of professional wrestling's premier content creators, another one of professional wrestling's premier individuals, and a guy that I'm very, very proud to call a friend, someone I've collaborated with a lot, whether it's on this, whether it's on anything going on the Ontarian independent scenes, and Holden Albright, a guy I got a whole lot of love for, and a guy with probably the best mask in professional wrestling. We're going to go ahead and be putting people over like ridiculous on the show, man. It's good to see you. As expected, you and I are going to have a great time, and hopefully you guys do in the comments as well. But how are you doing, most importantly, friend?
I'm doing very fine, and I haven't got a chance to tell you yet, so I wanted to surprise you. Every day I carry a little bit of Love Wrestling with me because I have a little sticker on the back of my phone that I got from Big Ben Ortman's.
Ben, you big stud. Oh, I love you guys.
A little bit of you in my pocket every day.
Dude, I appreciate it, and I'm very, very happy that I get to say the same. I unfortunately don't have the old Holden Albright sticker on the back of the phone, but like when I was trying to set up this podcast, and the reason, if you guys are like branding sticklers out there like I am, we usually have like a nice little logo in between the mind behind blank. But quite literally, dude, all we could put there is the mind behind Holden Albright, because you got a lot of stuff going on, whether it's your professional wrestling itself, whether it's the multitude of different podcasts or Instagram lives or anything like that you're doing. You do too much for me to try and fit them all in there and have it still look good. So there are a lot of people who may be tuning in for the first time. I know it's fairly cliche to kick off, but I'll allow for one. It's the Spider-Man theory. If anybody's tuning in and meeting Holden Albright for the first time, give me your elevator pitch and give me a little bit of who you are, friend. You got the big screen to do so.
Brother, I do so much I forget to promote it, very much like you mentioning promoting this last minute. I don't promote my stuff to where I go, oh, this YouTube video has been up for 5 days. It has 1 view. Oh, I didn't share it at all. But yes, I am Holden Albright, portrayed by Brendan Caulfield. I've done podcasts, magic, stand-up comedy. I'm not a good musician or vocalist, so I haven't done that, but I've drunkenly quite a bit. But yeah, I do pro wrestling, but then I also talk shit on podcasts, but also just realizing it where I think I did my best interview ever right now, and it's online right now, actually, right before I hopped on here. Josh Alexander, current Impact Wrestling X Division champion. He's somewhat of a mentor and a peer of mine, and we didn't sit down and talk, but over Zoom, a 2-hour conversation, basically becoming This Is Your Life, and his struggles, his goals, how much pride he has in his wife and children. Like, it's so awesome to hear. But I now realize this is Brendan, which I started as the Holden Albright character, very dark, didn't want to become Heath Ledger, and passed away in a hotel room. So I wanted this podcast to stay in touch. And I realized there's been a lot of self-discovery between solo podcasts, chats with my friends of, wow, like you could see if someone's a therapist, you can diagnose me with 1,700 different things by listening to this. But it's definitely seen the growth of someone over the last 4 or 5 years become like a man and an adult, and just like as crazy with all the stuff behind me. So yes, Holden Albright, Brendan Caulfield.
Well, and it said slightly tongue in cheek, and by no means do I want to put like any humor, I guess, on any sort of actual regulated therapy. But like for me, and I know you and I have talked about this a ton before, like this almost is a form of therapy in some way, shape, or form, especially while you and I are going through the pandemic. And of course, everyone else throughout the world, it's so hard to connect with people on a one-on-one or a couple of people on one basis. Was that sort of the impetus, I guess, for wanting to start This Is Brendan specifically? Or was it a bigger conversation? Because of course you got a ton of great stuff on the Patreon end, and a lot of it launched on a fairly similar timeline. So maybe clear that end up for me. And I guess, of course, the larger conversation is you and I tend to go off the rails with these sorts of things.
Hell yeah. But like, so This Is Brendan started maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was recording the conversations in cars or hanging out with people. And I did what you shouldn't do. I asked some of my closest friends, what was your first opinion of me and what's your current opinion of me? Which it took 7 episodes, and then Gabriel Freza said, I hated you when I first met you. But also Gabriel Freza hates everyone.
I like you now is the start of a lot of those podcasts, eh?
Well, yeah, because literally, like, I was silent because, and you'll hear me reveal it throughout all the podcasts. I actually did this great chat with Ryan Knight and Brian Weiss and a couple others called the Expressions podcast. And it was less wrestling and more so like the struggles and family stuff coming up. But later on, it became during the pandemic, I just wanted to talk to my friends and meet up new people. And literally I ask questions that I'm genuinely curious about. I don't just ask like, what's your favorite color? I'm like, what was your motivation for this? Because we get to surround ourselves with people that are motivated and not, I wish I could do this, but literally just do it. So I wanted to dive into their brains, and there's a lot of struggles that people don't talk about. And I like finding out that stuff. And sometimes I make people feel uncomfortable, but then all these other ideas. I did my first podcast in 2012. So I've had these different evolutions of different shows and such that now with the pandemic, I can't wrestle on weekends. So hey, let me do all this content. I just looked, my Patreon it launched January 1st. And today I post like maybe my 345th update. And those are all podcast videos. I've done Zoom events multiple times a month. I like to keep busy.
To say the least, man. Ed, it's good to see you in the comment section. Of course, if you guys are tuned in, like I said, on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, if you guys are torrenting it, kind of cool.
Yeah, that's like a goal.
To be torrented at this point, right?
I was thinking earlier today. I was like, is that like an underground achievement? Yeah.
It's like one of the first you'll unlock on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 at this point. And of course, Joe, good to see you as well. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, of course, the only concerns are usually with my hosting ability. But if you got questions and comments for Holden Albright, played by Brendan Caulfield, feel free to throw them in there. And it's one of the biggest reasons as well that I wanted to chat with you because, like, again, not to like blur the lines, I guess, too much, and you can sort of cross the ones that we need to with it. But like, you and I have always been able to have very character-based conversations, and I always like to err to the professional wrestler on that end of things. Somebody wants to come in and do a full quote-unquote in-character interview, cool. Happy to do those, not cross any lines.
As long as you're not a dick.
Exactly, right? I think that's like the general underlying tone of anything anyone should ever do anywhere at any point. But when you and I have ever talked, like even the first time we chatted was very much about the origins of Holden Albright and where he sort of started from and where the mask even came from, which was a surprising answer. And if I'm going to put over a podcast, that's going to be one of them that I check out from the WCSN. But Holden Albright now, where do you find that he's evolved, and especially over the pandemic, since you initially kicked it off in pro wrestling a few years ago?
So Holden Albright, when he first started, was just generic, like MMA fighter kind of dude. And then it became, I was in this stable called the Riot Makers. So I was like this terrorist style rioter protester kind of thing. And then it became the demonic weird thought process that there's a show inspired by Mankind. I literally have multiple Mankind Mick Foley references around me at all times. But what happens though is literally I'm a fan of true crime. I'm not a fan of horror movies, so I was inspired by spree killers and serial killers and put little dashes of that into the character. And then during the pandemic, it literally, in Ontario in 2019, I just became the dude that'll wrestle every show and wrestle really, really hard every time. So literally, I had that. And then during the pandemic, like there's nothing else to do. And you can either be bitter and complain online, or you could talk to your friends and start a podcast, or you could like motivate people and try to help the societal slice of culture of pro wrestling in our little space. And then it became, the Holden Albright of 2019 into 2020 is very much a little more respected than scared, but also I was on my way of leaving the territory and traveling more and getting to be able to do all the stuff I was doing in 2019, but like in Indiana and Ohio, out west, in the Maritimes, everywhere. And I was like, okay, but there's going to be this duology of, in Ontario, Holden Albright's going to be more of the advanced test for younger guys of, I'm the guy you wrestled to know if you can do a main event match. And then outside of this, I'm the guy that's being introduced for the first time in an opener match of 5 to 10 minutes or in a scramble match or whatever, that I was trying to keep track of that. But then at the core with Brendan, I'm just a 28-year-old just stumbling his way through pro wrestling and life in general. So there's always this weird, and I don't think overthinking is a bad thing. If you're overthinking about stuff you can't change or about people, that's the wrong overthinking. But if you're overthinking about, well, I want to star in movies, so I need to get extra work first. So what if I do this and this? That's not overthinking. That's planning. And that's just the overthinking stuff you can't change, planning is stuff that you can do. And the only difference is, I wish this happened versus I'm just going to do it.
Absolutely, man. And I think there's a lot of great stuff that I definitely want to pick on a bit, but we're going to encourage comments. You might as well do right by the people in the comment section. Ed hopping in. Do you feel it's difficult to create enough content to have both a Patreon as well as a free audience? And I think that's a great question for you, especially given, like you said, how much you do put up on the Patreon end. Like, I was trying to do the mental math, and if we're 125, 35 days, whatever it might be, like, you're putting out 2 or 3 posts a day, at least, as far as that goes. So, Ed, great question. Holden, hoping for a great answer, and I'm sure I'll get it.
So I literally, on a notepad here, have written out like all the stuff that if you join the Patreon right now and not January, you would get almost 100 bonus podcasts and different like exclusive videos of me watching back some of my old matches with my opponents and the different stuff we're talking. And I have the benefit that if there's a paywall, I can justify bringing the current back a little bit. I can justify, oh, homie was blowing up. That's why that match got screwed up. And like, it's just that general conversation. And then the Zoom calls and such like that, yes, I'm a motivating person. When I talk to people, it's no BS. I will tell them what I think is wrong or what they need improvement, because I'll critique. I'm not just poop talking on someone. I'm just like, no, these are things that I see that you can improve on. And it's literally the creating enough content to have a Patreon as well as a free audience. I create way too much content on Patreon that it's my justification, but also I'm a fan of other patrons. So like, I'm on the Major Wrestling Figure podcast Patreon. I'm on ad-free shows, and oh my God, if you're on ad-free shows, you're getting like 6 episodes a day of podcasts, some exclusive, some early. And that's where I get my mentality from of, so right now I have 28 patrons, and for as low as $7 a month Canadian, you can literally get a daily podcast that's like a song of the day. Me and Kobe Durst, another well-known independent wrestler, are not the most sober, and we recorded a 30-minute podcast every week for 25 weeks. Like, there's all this stuff that if you don't like everything, you'll like something. And that's, I was
gonna say, and like, if there's anything that I can put on my own end, I enjoy all the content, but the Kobe Durst podcasts are worth their money,
right?
I would certainly qualify that if you guys are under the age of 18 or do not have parental consent to be listening, might not be the most PG podcast to be going down the road of, but I digress.
The paywall. Justifies the paywall.
Exactly it. You got to make your money somehow, brother, right? You and I have talked about it, and we talked about it a ton even when I did the Instagram live with you, but I think it's something that's worth bringing up on here, and it's a bit, again, of a repeat question, but where does that motivation come from? For someone like myself, it comes from, the conversations you and I have had about don't compare yourself to the best in your territory or with your promotion or whatever, but compare yourself with the best of the best. For you, though, where does that sort of intrinsic motivation come from?
So I feel like, and it's weird, I've been thinking about that recently. So here's the thing, and I'm talking to you as a friend, a fellow podcaster. I think having a podcast is the most vain thing you can do, an egotist.
Oh, for sure.
My voice is so important that I'm going to press record, and someone in Saudi Arabia, someone in Spain, someone in Brazil is going to download this and listen to it. And the thing is, they do listen, and then they message, and they're like, why do we have this following? But like, for me, it comes down to, I just saw people doing podcasts like 2010. And literally, I'm just like, oh, well, I could do that. How do they do that? Oh, Levelator, Audacity, this, that, boom, boom. And I just did it. And then I always wanted to be some sort of entertainer. I never wanted to be like a WWE professional wrestler. Like I never wanted to main event WrestleMania, but I knew the indies were real. I knew people that didn't work hard wrestled every weekend because I watched MTV True Life. That like I knew it was something I was going to do. But like
there's a shout, man. I haven't heard that name thrown out there in a long time.
Dude, oh man, MTV.
That's
early
like, do you
2000s.
remember, like, just to keep going with it? Like, do you remember the show Next?
Yes. Okay.
Oh
So
my goodness.
there's a docu-series version of MTV that was like True Life and all this other stuff, like before Teen Mom. But then on the other side is the most like, okay, Blind Date's an interesting show. We're gonna do Next. We're gonna do stuff that's very like competition for love. Like it's messed up.
VIP. Oh my god, what a train wreck that show was.
Even when I was Canadian television ads best.
Well, and honestly, I was probably sitting there, like you and I are same age. We're within a couple of months. Like we were probably sitting there at about 8-9 years old, and I'm sure I'm speaking for you on this. Like sitting there thinking, this can't be right.
I was actually on the other end of that. I was impressed.
You know what? As a guy who is terrible and still is terrible with the opposite sex, I'd also say the same. Throwback, it is good to see you, friend. Thank you for hopping in. And before I read this out, I'll answer the second part of your question with a conclusive yes, because of anybody that I've had the opportunity to speak with. And I ain't overqualified by any means, but I'm very lucky to have spoken to a lot of great individuals in pro wrestling. And the dude sitting right there, right there, is easily one of the first people that I will go to when I'm looking for motivation or anything of this sort. You're even talking about like constructive criticism, which I think a lot of people look on negatively, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Throwback, let's get to the question. What is the best and worst moments for you as a content creator? And have you ever opened up about your life that might help others in a positive manner?
I think the best moments as a content creator is when you get that message from someone that's like, oh, that thing you mentioned really opened up to me, or like it clicked with me, or I'm not the only one that went through this. Because I'm starting to realize like the perfect family unit is total BS. Everyone's dysfunctional. Not everyone has a clean house. Like what television tries to portray is the most wrong thing ever because everyone relates with everything else. But like the best moments as a content creator is when you get those messages. The worst moments is when you're 5 episodes behind recordings from February that you're still editing, which is where I am, that it's with the Patreon. Okay, Tiger and the Wolf, we went up within 24 hours because we recorded the night before. M4 goes up within that week, but this is Brendan suffered a little bit. And in my mind, I'm like, the next episode I'm going to release is with PB Smooth, and we recorded that back in February, and like his career has gone in a bigger direction recently. But like, I want to tell my friends stories, and having those banked up, those are the worst when you're like, I need to get to this, but there's other priorities before it. And have you ever opened up about your life that might help others in the pod? Yes, everything I post is me talking to myself because it's all my struggles. I'm not trying to motivate anyone, but literally it's struggles I have, and we're all similar. Just people don't know how to talk about it. People don't know how to not just talk about their losses and not to brag about their wins. But it is in all of that little stuff of I'm trying to go for those Facebook memories that when I read it in a year and I realize I'm still miserable about the same thing, I'm like, screw that. That's affected me in the past. I need to move on from that.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right?
Yes.
Right. And I completely agree. Like you always have, and I said it right off the bat. It's why I felt the need to put you over before you started to. But you're easily one of those guys who, like, again, when I'm looking for motivation or looking for a source of inspiration, you know, praise to Jesus, you're one of the first people that I go to. Was it hard for you to start to open up like that?
So when I was 9 years old, the house I was living in, the house we owned as my family, I don't know what words I'm trying to say, but the house was foreclosed on. And that year we went to WrestleMania and we got like nosebleed, like cheap as hell tickets. Like, yeah, they were tickets, but like they could have been better. And the way that my family will argue and blame the person not in the room. I don't care about who's not in the room. I'm talking to you right now. Let's figure out this problem. And then it became, I got blamed for the house being foreclosed on. And between 9 to like 16, 15, I was very quiet. Everything was internal. I had no friends. I I kind of did magic as a social currency so that people would like me. And it's stuff like that that led to me. Like, I dropped out of high school, but I had plans on going to college for film and television. I'm glad I didn't, because my life going the way it did, I'm quite happy right now. And that's the thing. I wasn't happy until 3 weeks ago. I had a realization. I was just lying down. I'm just like, there's contentment. Oh, is this happy? And like, I've never been depressed, but I was never not depressed. I just never realized it. And now coming up, I saw someone share something about like a lot of people preach positivity, but it's just ignoring negativity. Where and I've told this a few people in the past few days, actually, because they're like, I love your positive outlook on life. No, it is a positive words, but I live in the negativity because I'm like, what can be fixed? I start a wrestling promotion because I think more good needs to be done than bad. So I'm going to do it myself instead of complaining. There's all this stuff of if you're not in the struggle, you're not going to be able to appreciate it. And also, like, I am in that damn process. I am in that struggle right now. I am not Jeff Bezos saying, oh, well, I could do this and boost her. I'm living that. And that's why, like, I've loved the recent episodes on my This Is Brendan podcast of it's all people that are hustling. It's all people that are happy in the struggle right now, as opposed to they've already made it. They're trying to make it. And what my group of friends are now considering is making it is just being happy. It's not a contract. It's not this. It's what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to go on more hikes? Cool. What do you have to do to accomplish that? And that, like, with Love Wrestling, I love seeing all the stuff, no pun intended, of all the stuff you're doing, because that inspires me. And just having our mutual, okay, there's a lot on the plate. That means we're going to eat, but we might not eat all of it and we might miss out on something, but at least we're going to try.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it. When you talk to Josh Alexander, because admittedly I've still got to tune into the podcast. It wasn't enough for my drive time commute yet. I got to take another drive time commute to finish it off. But what inspires you about him? Obviously, you see him on Impact and you see what he's done in professional wrestling. But when I was chatting with Alexia a couple of weeks ago, or when you talk to Von Vertigo or anybody out in Ontario, it's one of those things where it's easy to tell how he's influenced the scene, but it's also one of those things that I don't think people really recognize how much he's impacted the scene out there. So again, man, it's story time with Holden Albright. Maybe give me a little bit into that side of things as well.
Josh Alexander is a guy that if he doesn't respect or like something you did, he will message you. He might put you on blast, but and I mentioned in the podcast, you might get a message from him that says, if this hurts your feelings, lose my number. And it's not because, and that's where I get like my critiquing from. I don't think it's a bad thing to tell someone that they're a mess up. Sometimes you have to smack someone in the back of the head so that they can straighten up. It's when people don't get smacked in the back of the head and 10 years later, they're still a dick. What are you doing with your life? Like there's
the problem at the root.
Yes. So he's one of those guys too. And I was, there's a guy in the area here, Day Tripper Travis Moore, and he just listened to the podcast and messaged me saying it was a great chat. The thing about it is talking about like Jeff Bezos not appreciating the struggle because you're too far away now. For anyone who doesn't know Josh Alexander struggles, he has 2 neck surgeries. He retired and then he came back and then he had border issues. He didn't get banned, but it wasn't easy for him. And it is so great that we have a 1 degree separation of, oh, he fought back from so many struggles. He got so much better versus we hear these stories of people improving and getting past obstacles, but we don't get to see it and feel it and touch it and watch it. And he's a guy that we could message and be like, so earlier this year, I was in a car accident and I was having whiplash symptoms. Also, like, I believe that if I wrestled in 2020, I was going to have some sort of neck injury or something because I was already feeling some stuff. And I think the pandemic like healed me enough. And he was the guy that I messaged because I was like, I'm having weird neck pains. He told me, I only had an x-ray. He's the one that told me, go get an MRI. He told me what neck suppressor or whatever to buy, how to do it and everything, and wanted to be updated throughout the whole process because he cares. It's not because I'm one of his students, because he's never formally trained me, but he's mentored me so much on the road. And as a man, like, he is a father figure to me where I do have my dad, but this is a man that he would wrestle 3 shows on a Sunday, get home at 1 a.m., wake up at 3 a.m., go do squats at the gym, and then go to work. Like, he's not the guy that complains, I have work the next morning. He'll just do it. And that's why he's such a big scene of people don't know Josh Alexander's full story. They just see the dude that's a really good wrestler. But then when you find out he's a really good person, and then when you find out he had so many obstacles in wrestling, you can't not respect that man.
Absolutely, man. And even like, obviously, I've never met her or chatted with her previously, but like the podcast he did with Jade and the couple he's done by this point, fantastic. She seems like a killer individual too.
She's the best. She's one of the once again, not a trainer of mine, but a mentor and a peer. I was like the youngest guy in this group of 7 to 8 of us, and she was there. She literally, the jacket I wear, that's her handprint that's in the blood on it. She cut it for me. And literally just seeing like them together, they're both two awesome people. Their children are awesome. Like I may or may not have seen them rolling around in a ring last Friday, and those kids are workers, brother. Like, oh my God.
The Alexanders are second generation superstars coming up. Of course, we're going to dive a little bit more into Ontario, but we've only got about 5 minutes left here on Mind Behind this Tuesday. Holden, we're going to have you back, of course, because let me tell you, friend, it's just good to shoot the shit with you. I also want to give a big thank you.
Still need to see you in person.
That'll happen. But we're going to need to save that for the future edition of the Mind Behind here. We've got irons in the fire, as I believe that the youths are saying out there. Also want to give a big shout out to Cody. Thank you for the like on Facebook and wherever you guys might be watching, whether it's Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, or of course, if we're being torrented, as we're really hoping for at this point.
Get on Extreme Wrestling Torrents. That's the goal.
That'll be my first pro wrestling t-shirt is please torrent love wrestling.
I love it.
I honestly think it'd sell at this point. But of course, I want to make sure that we offer up the opportunity. If you guys have questions for Holden Albright or Brendan Caulfield, there is two personalities on one screen right here. Feel more than free to send them out there, whether it's in ring, whether it's out of the ring, whether it's podcasting, video stuff, upcoming goals, Go Hard Pro Wrestling, anything in between. Again, if I'm already naming off that much stuff that you have to ask about, you know we're going to have you back on another show. But friend, one of the things that I've liked doing, and of course, if comments come in, I'll throw them out there. But one of the things that I've liked doing while I'm closing out the shows, and I've taken a couple options away from you, is closing out just by giving you the floor for some people that have influenced you, put some positivity into your life, some people that deserve a shout out. The floor is yours, my friend. Who are some people that have influenced, inspired, or continued to motivate you, not just now, but whenever?
I'll just give credit to random, and like you can kind of see little snippets of my inspiration around me because I collect this stuff to look at it and remind myself of the childlike wonder. But like Josh Alexander, Jay Chung, Brent Banks, Tarek, oh my God, he hits hard. Shane Saber, Young Miles, like there's so many people. Big Ben Ortman's, Notorious TID, Ashley Six, Anthony Kingdom James, who I always joke, I'm like, I have friends that are 18 years old and 50. He's the 50-year-old I'm talking about. And he's so creative, and like he's a comic book artist. Literally, I have, if you ever picked up Austin 316's 316 Facts, he actually did the animations and drawings in it. Like that's Kingdom's drawings. Like it's so dope. Like I have all these friends. I have a referee friend, Jimmy Vandalay, that's done music video art for like Drake and Dolly Parton. Like it's crazy. I have all these people in my life and they all inspire me. To the random fans and supporters that I see them drawing like different artwork or working on different hobbies, like that inspires me because I can't do that. Like literally any form of artwork inspires me, and I'm not spiteful that I can't do that because I'll do my own stuff. I'll do podcasts, I'll do wrestling, but I'm still inspired by all these art forms, and I'm one of the people. The patrons call themselves the Acolytes of Albright. I say it's not a cult, but literally, if I wanted it to be a cult, I can. But all I do is
one step away, yeah.
all I do is lift people up. I have this thought process of going insane of, oh my gosh, there's too many people that like look up to me or do whatever, and I realize I don't tell them what to think or what to do. I praise them for what they are. I may or may not have seen Junior Benito recently, and he's a great dude from the Ottawa area, trained by the Dark Order, and literally we've had 4 hellos and goodbyes, and this was the first time we had a conversation, and him just mentioning what he wants to do with wrestling. He's 19 years old, super talented. And I was just like, well, this, and like hyping him up and stuff. He's like, you really know how to like hype people up. I'm like, oh, that's just the way I am, because be the change you want to be. If I am that person I needed when I was 16, if I can't be that person now, I'm going to be that person to the next generation. And there's a little part of my podcast, if I didn't swear so much, it would be for 10 to 18 year olds. But that's when I get more money so I could pay someone to edit it for me and go, here's one, because everyone struggled. And like when you're in that struggle at 11, like you need to hear this. And I hope like, that's the great thing about wrestling. When we see these little kids at shows,
it's nuts, man. It's absolutely nuts. Like, it's the same way I think I can equate my shoot job with it, is like when you've got the opportunity to impact, yes, the people around you, but like you say, the next generation, it does take on that little bit of an extra level. And it's nothing against, again, the people that surround us, everything for those people. Vanessa's summing it up beautifully. Holden is the man. Vanessa. Wow, yes, he is on the fine line of normal dude and cult leader.
I do say that there's nothing illegal I want to do, like multiple wives or sexual acts. That's why I'm not a cult leader yet. Give me like 12 more years to figure it out.
We'll get the paperwork filed in time for that. Don't worry on that end of things. But Holden, I'm going to let you close it out here. If you guys are tuned in, however, on YouTube and Facebook, once Holden finishes up, you're going to hear the music, and you can tune in tonight as I guest on Power Out with our good friend Zach Ralph in just a couple of hours' time. But if you guys are tuned in on Twitch, we brought up Big Ben earlier. We're going to go say hello to him over on the Twitch side of things. So continue to stay tuned, because much like Holden did by hopping on today, much like I like to consider he does for me as well, we want to support great people doing great things for great professional wrestlers, and Ben certainly fits in that category, much like Holden Albright. So Holden, the floor once again is yours. Where can people find you? How can people keep track of you, whether it's on Patreon, on Twitter, or hopefully in the near future inside the squared circle, to steal a cliche?
Canada's opening up soon. Hopefully the borders open up. You can book me at Holden Pro. I believe it's Holden Pro at like hotmail.com, but follow me at Holden Pro on Instagram and Twitter. Brendan Caulfield is the Facebook account. I accept pretty much everyone as long as your recent posts haven't been creepy. Creepy or spammy. I don't want no Ray-Bans where you tagged 1,000 people, but you can
just
follow
send
me
the Ray-Bans. You don't need to tag me.
Yes. So you can follow me there. And if you would like to support me financially, patreon.com/Brendan C, BRENDONE, the letter C. You'll get countless podcasts. You'll get community. And also, brother, you ever want to wrestle? I have a promo contest. Over the next 12 months, all of my Patreons are able to enter a promo contest. And next July, the top 6 in the brackets will compete in some sort of like wipeout, most extreme elimination challenge style thing in a park. Not too sure yet. And then one of those people will face me in December next year in a pro wrestling match. You get a full entrance, bell rings. I'm wrestling an untrained person, and I'm booking it myself.
Honestly, I will do it if you just Spike Dudley the shit out of me, and then I win via roll-up.
Well, brother, who said you're going over? I just said you're having a match.
I don't take bookings unless I win. Come on here, Holden. Like I ain't learned much in professional wrestling, but I fucking learned one thing. Friends, if you guys have tuned into The Mind Behind and you want to continue to keep up to date with the great content we've got here on Love Wrestling, it isn't just me. There are a lot of great individuals doing great things for professional wrestling, content contributions, wrestling, and everything in between. Holden's got it on the sticker, and you guys can find it on your screens, whether you head to where videos are played, audio is listened to, or articles are written. It is all at Love Wrestling CA. The only difference, if you want it in one fell swoop, just put a nice little dot in between Love Wrestling and CA, and you'll find everything in one fell swoop on the website. Give us a like, a share, a follow, a subscription, a Yelp review, and anything in between. However you guys choose to support, it is always appreciated. If you're on Twitch, you can follow and subscribe. It is always appreciated when you choose to do so. But the fact that you guys are tuning in when there's so much professional wrestling content out there, there's the WWE Network on Peacock and everything else out there. There's so much, and you guys took the time for us today. That means a lot from the bottom of my heart. And if you want to continue to do so for us, we plugged ourselves. If you want to do so for Holden, he plugged himself, and I'll be tweeting everything. Plugged himself. He'll be tweeting everything out, everything following today's show. But thank you guys once again. I've hit the start raid button, so we're going to go say hi to our friend Big Ben. JPJ, thank you once again for tuning in. I agree, it was great stuff, and that is always courtesy of the fact that I'm lucky to have great people as guests on the show. For Holden Albright, I've been Spencer Love. Thanks for tuning in to The Mind Behind. We're heading over to see Big Ben on Twitch, and if you're elsewhere, we'll see you next Tuesday.